Would you risk 3 caramel buns, spend 16 hours in the kitchen just to make your birthday cake? You get depressed on your birthday because you wait for others to show you love instead of you showing yourself some love first. And having baked all the cakes you've just seen for others, I set out to bake myself something extra special. After scrolling on the internet for hours, like how you scroll on Tinder trying to find someone to love you, I finally found a recipe that made my creative juices start flowing. Your ex considers you crazy, and this next statement is even more crazy. Making the chocolate cake and the Raspberry German Buttercream was the easy part. By the way, I have separate recipes on those two, so you might want to check them out. However, just like your CV because you lack work experience, the cake wouldn't stand out, so I came up with the showstopper. The showstopper, a word that can't describe your outfits because they're all boring, is actually made from cream puffs, specifically Choux ou Craquelin. If you didn't understand that word, you're not dumb like you usually are, you're just a person of limited language. Combine some milk and butter with some sugar and salt, then bring it to a boil and dump in some flour. The next step is just like making ugali. Pound it aggressively to mimic your girlfriend's favorite activities with the homies you trust. Once it forms a dry skin like the one on your ashy ankles, spread it out to cool down, otherwise it will scramble the eggs we're about to add. Break in 3 eggs like how you should be breaking out from the shackles of your comfort zone because you don't like taking risks. It should leave a smooth V once fully mixed. That was the Choux part of the Choux ou Craquelin. For the Craquelin part, combine some butter with some dark and light-skinned sugar to represent the diversity of the men who cheat on you. Some salt is to balance out the sweetness, then mix it to form a smooth paste. Add in some flour to give it some stability, then combine it to form a mixture that is crumbly and falls apart easily, like you under any minor inconvenience. Some baking paper prevents it from sticking, just as how you don't stick to any workout routine. Throw it in the fridge once it comes to around half a centimeter of thickness. Now comes the most tedious part. I had to draw multiple grid lines so that I could draw circles of 1 inch in diameter. This was to ensure the cream puffs come out perfectly even. Then I had to cut out circles of the Craquelin while ensuring the butter in it doesn't melt. After placing them on top of all the 75 cream puffs, I baked them at 180 degrees for 40 minutes. Now we enter the dangerous part. This is a dry caramel. What is it for? You ask. The cream puffs. Audacity must have been on wholesale prices when I wanted to use the caramel to join them in this shape. You see, with the cream puffs being smaller than your shoe size at your big age and the caramel being crazy hot, the chances of me burning my fingers were extremely high, and burn myself I did. 3 times in fact. I also had to ensure that the caramel was hot enough to remain liquid while at the same time not being too hot to burn, but all that work paid off. Yes! I was thrilled when it didn't fall apart. I then had to make these legs to hold up the cream puffs. That's where the problems began. The cream puffs weren't level horizontally, meaning they couldn't hold up the structure we just made, which made me so annoyed I forgot to record how I fixed the issue. Thankfully, the cake decoration was easier than it is for you to lower your salary expectations just to get hired. I first soaked the cake layer in a chocolate simple syrup. I then spread on a layer of the buttercream as well as some raspberry jam, and I topped it off with the final cake layer. This is called a crumb coat, and it prevents crumbs from being seen on the final layer of the buttercream. After the crumb coat had set to be firmer than your boundaries, I put on the final layer of buttercream and smoothened it out. Some rosettes of whipped cream went on, and I topped them off with some raspberries that I had reserved. Remember the showstopper? I wanted it to do this. I want to be able to do that with the exoskeleton, to be able to remove it and it be a self-supporting structure, much like the one for the croquembouche. Yup, I converted it into a croquembouche because the other design was too complicated. And yes, it actually did what I said in the previous video. We did it! So I present to you a chocolate fudge cake with the raspberry jam filling covered in a Raspberry German Buttercream and topped with a Choux ou Craquelin croquembouche. Damn, that name is longer than your man's dick.